Stalker Roguelike. You clicked this video because you want to see what it looks like when the two are crossed. Either that or you're part of the 90% of my subscribers that subscribed 2 months ago and only want Stalker content. That seems to be all you're here for. Please watch my other videos, I put so much effort into them. This is a game called Lurker. I found it on itch.io as a roguelike game inspired by Stalker and Escape from Tarkov. There's a lot of crossover between those games and their fan bases and elements that they have, but I think the game is much more Stalker adjacent. Here are some of the features the game page says it contains. Traditional turn-based roguelike look and feel, different level archetypes, melee and ranged combat, a variety of weapons, armor, and items to find, a myriad of monsters to murder, a breadth of ammunition types. You can level up by earning XP, you can upgrade your stats, and apparently there's a post-mortem file generated upon death. I don't really see the value of listing that. And it has original music, which I think is pretty cool. The description reads, kill everything and collect enough supplies to stay alive as long as you can in the abandoned bunkers under the special exclusion zone. So yeah, very Stalker. The game is by a developer who goes by Tigwick, and this was his first project. While his other projects also look interesting, I hope he returns to clean some things up with this one, for reasons I will expand upon later in the video. I would like to say before I get into this that I do commend this guy for giving a Stalker roguelike a shot, and he definitely has a corner on that niche market, at least for now. I say this because I definitely have some negative things to say about the game, and I just don't want that to come off as my disregard for the time and effort Tigwick put into this. And there are a lot of things about this game I appreciate, as well as things that could be improved upon. With all that out of the way, I hope you consider subscribing, and we're going to get right into it. You boot up the game and it takes you to this menu. We'll be seeing this menu a lot during the video. The background music isn't bad, and I think it decently fits the atmosphere. I actually think the GUI is pretty sweet too. Very minimalistic, but it goes a step further than basic ASCII graphics. It's somewhat stylish and I like the colors. You can see here my first battle that I ever had in this game. It's pretty simple. A giant rat shows up on the map. He's just represented by an R. You just walk into him and you hit him. Something else that should be mentioned is you do have guns in this game. I start off with a Makarov pistol, and I think the range attacks work pretty well in this game because time still continues to flow even when you do use a ranged attack. It takes up a bit of time. And I do like that the map has some color in it, you know? It's not just basic ASCII like I said. Like there's some green for bushes, there's some brown for what I'm assuming to be the top of mountains. What I will say though is once you get to know the map a little bit, once you flesh out your screen because everything just starts out dark, once you get some of that stuff discovered, you start to realize this is just pretty basic wave function collapse. So I just do some exploring and then the game just straight up crashes. This happens. I mean, I'm sorry, it didn't really crash. What it did is it has this weird glitch that happens a lot where your person just starts going underneath the map and doesn't light it up and doesn't discover anything new anymore, and you basically just have to restart the game. Sadly, this happens quite a bit, which is why I wouldn't really recommend trying this game for yourself. It took a lot of tries to actually make it far enough to get footage of some of these levels, and a lot of the levels I had to proceed while blind, like I couldn't actually see my character. It was a very tedious process. But yeah, it's just a weird bug that happens very often, and I'm sure there's a practical reason for it. I would really like the dev to fix it, but who am I to make demand? Anyways, I boot the game back up, and I continue doing some exploring, and then I realize that the music does stop after a while. The music doesn't loop. Again, I feel like I'm sounding really critical here, but I'm just telling events in the way that they happen. I was playing, and the music just stopped, and it felt very empty, and then it started crashing again. So yeah, so I booted up once again. It's working so far. I'm doing some exploring. You can pick up medkits. They're represented as hearts on the ground. I start to flesh out the map and explore a little bit, even though it can feel kind of samey for a Stalker roguelike. Again, it's pretty good map generation. I like how it's not all confined strictly to within a dungeon, although I will say that these areas, for having the expanse that they do, they don't really do a lot with the expanse, if that makes any sense. It's very big, but it's very empty, and obviously it would be a lot of work to implement some other stuff in there that isn't just random tiles, and I'll talk later about the possibilities that I think a Stalker roguelike has, and some cool things that I think would be awesome to see in a game like this. But for now, just my thoughts, we'll leave it at, I feel like it's just very open, and sometimes that's to a fault. Again, I do like the look of this game. It's not that bothers me, really. I like the flashlight system, if it just wouldn't crash the game. Let's talk about the GUI a little bit more. I like the purple to white tint. I think that works really cool. You've got your vitals up top, which is just your health. Then you've got your experience, your level, your attack and defense stats, your Rs, which I can only assume to mean rubles, some sort of money system, and then your bunker level, which is how deep into the dungeon area you are. There's an inventory system in this game, and there's also equipped items, so like you'll have an equipped melee, ranged weapon, armor, and then you can put armor on your head, your legs, and your feet. And yeah, I feel like the main problem that the map being so spacey brings about is the fact that you're going to want to hold a direction, right? Because you're not going to want to click every single time you want to move in a direction. That would take a really long time. So you're going to hold in a direction, and then something is going to latch onto you and start hitting you while you're moving, and you will die in just an instant, really. Or at the very least, you'll take some very preventable damage just because the area wasn't fleshed out enough. And I just feel like if there was more smaller details, like settlements showing up, artifacts on the ground, even just some different types of terrain that would spice things up and keep you moving slower. Also, more obstruction of movement, which I think is a very crucial idea that this game kind of experiments with the mountaintops. You can't cross over the mountaintops. I think some more obstruction of movement would really help slow things down and make your character go slower. But yeah, that's about it for the overworld. There was one time that it actually did crash my game, and I got like a coding error and all that stuff, and fun time. But that's all I'm going to talk about for the surface area. Moving on, we're going to talk about the bunker. So you get into the bunkers by finding this one spot on the overworld. It's pretty nondescript, actually. I didn't realize it for a good while of playing this game. But yeah, all you have to do is you walk up and you press E, and you'll go down into the bunker, and the music will change. This is what that music sounds like. It's pretty good. I think it's decent. And things change once you get into the bunker. I'd say the game gets quite a bit harder, which is good. And I actually really do like the bunker layouts. I think they're very creative. They kind of feel like a motherboard with all the branching paths and such. And there's a few different types of enemies you'll see here. You'll see mutant dogs. You'll see giant rats, of course. You'll also see other stalkers, which aren't called that, but you know, in spirit. They're basically just other people who have actual names. And I usually died before getting to floor 3. The farthest I've ever gotten is floor 6, which I sadly don't have footage of. I was playing it without recording. But here, I feel like the game deals with space a lot better. It's still not perfect. There are those long hallways that usually you'll just hold down a key and you'll go all the way. But you don't have to spend a bunch of time just clearing out and discovering an overworld down here. So I think that's nice. And yeah, the lab is pretty similar to the bunker. It looks the same, and the structures are a little bit different, but it plays the same. Since I didn't have footage from any of the runs that I got to the lab on, I tried to go back and get to the lab to get some more footage of it, but my game just kept crashing over and over again due to that one glitch that I mentioned towards the beginning of the video. So yeah, did not work. Overall, this game is a pretty solid first try at a Stalker Roguelike. But let's take some time to talk about just all the potential that a Stalker Roguelike really has. Roguelikes are based around RNG. Think about just how many items there are in Stalker. Even more so in Stalker Gamma. Think about all the enemies. One thing that is different about Stalkers than roguelikes is just that openness that Stalker has. So how could you integrate that into a roguelike? I do think it would be really cool if some sort of Stalker roguelike was just set in one of the Pripyat apartment buildings, where it's just a bunch of levels of very similar rooms, and then fill that with Stalker stuff. I hope you see the vision of what I'm talking about here. I'm just thinking it could be really cool. Maybe one day I will try to make it. I do have a game development video coming up. I've just got to add some finishing touches to my game, but maybe I can throw a Stalker roguelike on the project list of things I want to work on in the future. But yeah, I think a Stalker roguelike would be really cool. I think this game was really cool for what it was, and that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. There's no real dramatic outro or anything. Just thank you all for watching. I'd love to hear about all your ideas on a Stalker roguelike down in the comments. And yeah, that's about it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Stalker people, please watch some of my other videos and subscribe. See y'all in the next one.